Hi everyone, Sean here. This is the local variable type inference video that I referred to in my Java 11 launch video. So this was introduced in Java 10 and the syntax is something like var x is assigned 5, whereby you are saying that you want the compiler to decide the type for you. So let's look at some rules. There are some rules with it. We'll see what works and what doesn't work when we look at the rules. Number one, where can they be used? Now remember, they're local. So they are inside blocks of code, like constructors, methods, or initialization blocks. So that's number one. Let's look down through the code. Here is number one. This is just an instance initialization block. It's inside the class, but it's not inside any methods. So you can see there's the class curly brackets, there's the instance initialization block, and there is a local variable declaration. var d is assigned 4.5. This variable d is now a double. Here I'm inside a constructor. Var I is assigned 9, so I is now an int. And then I'm inside a method here, main. Var s is assigned double quotes ABC, so s is now a string. So they're valid declarations of local variable type inference, where the compiler infers the type. Where can you not use them? Number two. Well, you can't use them as constructor parameters or method parameters or static class variables. Remember, they're local. And there is one caveat, and that's where lambdas, where the parameter type can be inferred. Let's look at that. So here I have an instance variable declared outside all the methods, but inside the curly brackets of the class. Not allowed. Var is not allowed here. There's a class variable, it's static. Var is not allowed there either. Here's 2. I've tried to put in var x as my parameter to my constructor. Not allowed. Here's an ordinary method where I tried to put in var x. It's not allowed there either, even though I'm calling it with 1. It doesn't infer that it's an integer, it's just not allowed. And then the caveat was, well, look at this list here. I'm adding A, and B, and I'm calling the remove if in that list. So it's passing in a predicate. And basically it will remove every A in this case. So it's a predicate, which is a test method. Test method takes in one argument and it returns a Boolean. That's going to evaluate true or false. Now, because we're working off a list of string, Java knows, if I go down to its bare bones, that S is a string. So it's legal to put the var in there. Okay, that's one caveat with it. But normally, for method parameters, just don't do it. Be they constructors or normal, regular methods. Number 3. A variable is always initialized on the same statement where it is declared. For example, var x is assigned 8, making x an int. So let's look at that. There, var x semicolon x is assigned 2. That is a problem. These two statements need to be one statement. In other words, var x is assigned 2 semicolon. That semicolon finishes the statement. You can't have them over 2 statements. Basically, cannot infer the type for local variable x. You cannot use var on variable without an initializer. So we've got plenty of examples where we do it in one statement, like there and like there, but that 3 there is a problem. Number 4, the value of var can change, but the type cannot. So let's have a look at that. So here we've declared var d is assigned 4.5. it is now a double. So I can put in there. So it's the value has changed from 4.5 to 98.9. However, I can't go along and change it to double quotes SSS. That really shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It's now double because of the type inference from there. Yes, you can change the value that's in there, but you can't change its actual type. Number 5, var cannot be simply initialized to null. Cast the null to a type first. What do I mean by that? Well, here is the problem. Okay, it doesn't know what type to infer. That is a null, which means it's a reference type. But is J supposed to be a string, a double, an integer? If you've got a person or a car or a cat or a dog, it doesn't know. It doesn't know. So, but you have to cast it first of all. Now it says, oh yeah, I know S is supposed to be a string. So just don't initialize it to null like that. It cannot infer the type. Number 6, var not allowed in multivariable declarations. So here, as you can see, int a is assigned 3, comma, b is assigned 4 is not a problem. You can't do that with var. It's not allowed. 7, var is a reserved name, but not a reserved word. So in other words, we can say var is assigned 8. So the identifier in this instance, in this context, is okay, but your type names like classes, interfaces, and enums are not allowed. So there's the var is okay. But if you name your class or your enum or your interface var, you're going to get a problem. Now the history behind that is interesting in that when they were introducing var, they had to decide where they're going to make it a reserved word. If they had made it a reserved word, then this would not be allowed. Much like I can't declare an identifier named as for or do or switch. Any of those reserved words can't have variable names as those keywords. However, if they decided to do that here, then they ran the risk of breaking people's code throughout the world. Imagine all the millions and millions of lines of code that has been written since Java was first introduced. Somebody, somewhere, many people in fact, would have named identifiers as var, and it would break all their code, so they couldn't go and do that. But they were on safe ground here with class, enum, and interface, because since day one, you should have always used a capital letter for the first letter in your class, enum, interface. So there are the rules. Just remember that they're local and that the type has got to be inferred. The compiler has got to be able to infer the type. So you can use them in any piece of code, like a constructor, a method, or an initialization block. But you can't put them in to constructor parameters, method parameters. They can't be static variables or class variables. They must be initialized where they're declared on one statement. Obviously, you can't change the type. Be careful with the null. Multiple variable declarations there. Those two are kind of edge cases. But it is a reserved name, but not a reserved word. So I hope you liked the video, and there's plenty more coming. Thanks very much.